Hello, my name's Dawn Colley and I work for the Manx Wildlife Trust, and today for our little educational video I've come out into the garden to show you signs of something that we're looking for this time. So I'm just going to turn the camera around so we can have a look. Wall. Here we go, and what I'm looking at here, can you see there's some very fine strands just here behind my finger? Oh, just touching them now, I can feel them. And if you look, can you see, oh here, you can see very clearly just here, the sort of white strand here, and you can see a sort of tunnel. So we're looking at a spider's nest here. This is a tunnel web spider, funnel web spider, okay? Can you see down there? So webs are a very useful thing that the spider does. Now, they're made out of protein, and the web colours in our on the Isle of Man are always either white or a slightly bluish look, but it's a very clever way for the spider to capture its prey, really. Now, not all spiders make webs. About half of our spiders do, the other half don't. Jumping spiders jump on their prey, wolf spiders run after them, okay? So not every spider will make a web to catch its prey, but they're all capable of spinning silk. They often make an anchor line, so if they fall off something, it's like tied to their feet so they won't fall all the way down to the ground. And many spiders do a wonderful thing called ballooning, when the little spiderlings shoot up a little bit of silk in the air and the wind catches it and it helps spread the spiders around. So we're just going to have another look at for a different web now. So here we are, here's another sort of a web, and my goodness, it's a very messy looking one there, isn't it? There's all sorts of holes and everything in it. Now this one was created by something called a lace web spider, and they're called lace webs because can you see there's quite big holes in them? So when we look for spiders, we look at their webs, and that helps us tell us what sort of spider it's likely to be. So in my videos, I always like to talk about the anatomy, the different body parts of the creatures we're looking at. So obviously we're looking at spiders here, and they've got two very distinct sections to their body. This is so different from insects, which have three parts to their body. So we have the front end here, or what most people would think of as a head, called the cephalothorax, and then we have the big back end here called the abdomen. Now, spiders typically have 8 legs, or 4 pairs of legs, okay, which insects only have 6 legs. And at the back here, can you see we've got spinnerets on this spider? This is where the web comes from. So it always makes me laugh. Spider-Man shouldn't really have his webs coming out from his wrist. They should really come out of his bottom, okay? Most spiders have fangs. This is how they catch and they eat their prey as well. And we're just going to have a closer look at some of the webs and also those spinnerets. So this is a lovely picture of spinnerets on a spider, so really basically the spider's bottom, and they have nozzles where these the fibers come out of, so they can direct them. Now when they're shooting out the webs, they either use gravity to help the web fall away from them, or often they'll use their back legs to stretch that web out, okay, that silk as it comes out. Okay, spiders, they can make different sorts of silks. Some's very woolly looking, so that traps the insects more easily in the web. Some of the silk isn't, and they can have up to 5 different sorts of spinnerets around their bottom there. We talked about the different webs and we saw this one. So these are little diagrams of what the different webs look like. So this one is a lace web spider, or sometimes they're called webs, basically. You can see the holes like the lace in it. This one is a sheet web, and you'll often see these. This is very commonly spun by house spiders, and if you're like me and not so hot on the dusting, you'll find these almost like little hammocks strung across the corner of your skirting board. This one here, can you see how it leads down into a tube here? This is a funnel web. Okay, we do have funnel web spiders on the island. They're not dangerous at all. We've got some lovely ones on our reserve at Cronkyping called labyrinth spiders, and they make these lovely tubes, and they make a maze, a labyrinth with the tubes, and they hide their little baby spiderlings down the tube so they're protected from predators. And this is the one we're all used to. This is a typical cobweb that we will think of. This is an orb web spider has made this web. So typically that would be one of your garden spiders make one of these, and a garden spider's web can have up to 30 meters of silk in it. Wow, that's amazing. Now if you put in a lot of effort making that silk, and it's mainly out of protein, it's incredibly strong. It's stronger than some metals. If you got some metals and made them as fine as the silk, they wouldn't be as strong as the silk. And scientists are looking at it and trying to work out how that happens so they can make strong materials as well. So if you put a lot of energy into making this web, it does actually lose its stickiness over a couple of days. So what the spiders do is eat their web after a couple of days, and then it gets recycled. People often ask me, one of the questions is, how come spiders don't stick to their own web? And the answer is all in their feet. If you look at a picture of the very end of a foot on a spider, you can see that they're very, very hairy, and this helps stop them stick to their own webs. So they sort of tiptoe around on their own webs so they won't get stuck. Most spiders have 8 eyes. Now, not all of them do, but most of them have 8 eyes. This is a lovely wolf spider. They're just absolutely huge eyes. Now, most spiders don't use the sense of vision to catch their prey. They're actually covered in hairs that they can sense movement from. But can you see how these eyes are arranged? They're not always in one set pattern. And that tells us about what spider we're looking at. And I just thought I would show you different arrangements of eyes and point out some. So here we are, here's some spider's eyes. It does look a bit bizarre. So we've got here just the fangs and then the head and the eyes. And that one that we're looking at is a wolf spider, which we just had a little look at. This second one is actually the array of eyes. You can see there's not that second row, and they're jumping spiders. These ones are orb weavers. This one is a nursery web spider. This one down here I absolutely love. This is actually something called a woodlouse spider. And the reason I love it, can you see here how the fangs are actually sort of like angled? And this helps them to prise open woodlice. There's not many things that can actually penetrate through woodlice. This one is a ground orb spider, okay? And the one that I really like is 24 down here. This is our usual house spider. So I thought it'd be interesting to look at what's actually inside a spider. So this is labelled as a brain. Technically, it's not like our brain. It's a collection of neural cells, okay? And they also have, jumping spiders in particular, also have these cells down in their legs. And that's up to 25% of their leg is actually these cells. Most of these neural cells are actually contained within the cephalothorax, or what we think of as the head. And also on this diagram, it labels this as a heart. It's not really, they don't have a circulatory system like we do, where we've got veins running through our body. Most of this cavity is just filled with fluid. And rather than having hemoglobin, they actually have hemocyanin, which actually turns blue when it reaches the light. So this is more of a tube with muscles either side and a one-way valve. So it pushes the blood around the spider's body. So do they have lungs like we do? Well, most of them have like either a trachea or what we call a book lung. Okay, so they have openings to the outside of their body which let the air in, and the air travels through these tubes. The book lungs are called so because they've got like layers, like pages of a book. Most of the oxygen diffuses within this body cavity just here. Spiders have a digestive system very like ours, in that they have a stomach as well. What happens is when they catch their food, you can see here that the venom travels down into the fangs, and these have got serrated edges so they can actually cut into the body of the thing that it's going to eat. Now, when they draw up their food into their mouth, they've got a very strong muscular wall called a sucking stomach here that helps draw up that fluid. And it is only fluids that are taken into the spider's mouth. They have special brush attachments on their mouth parts. And so only particles about the size of 1 micron can actually get in. So just like us, the food goes into the stomach, and just like us, it travels through the intestines. And yes, they do have a bottom. There's lots of people who are very, very frightened of spiders, but actually they are pretty awesome things, because out of all of like the mini beast world, so I'm including slugs, snails, the insects, though they lay eggs like the insects do, and snails and slugs, they don't just abandon them. They are fantastic mums. Spiders are some of the best mums in the natural world. So here, this is something called a nursery web spider. And can you see she's got this sac that she's carrying underneath, and that contains all the eggs, and when they hatch, the little spiderlings as well might be attached to this little form here. I've seen them where the egg sac is so big they're actually right up on their tippy toes running around, but they're taking their babies around with them and protecting them and looking after them. Now, this next picture looks very weird, but this is probably a better one. This is a wolf spider, and what happens is when her eggs hatch, she doesn't just abandon her spiderlings. On her back here are loads and loads of the little spiderlings, and she carries them around with her. How very cool is that? We're just going to look at some microscope videos of spiders that I found in my garden. And this first one is a common crab spider. That's a lovely view of it. You can see its eyes, 2 eyes. Actually, because it's a crab spider, the other 2 eyes are further down. You can just see them dark as spots. And there's another set of eyes that are tucked more around the corner that are a bit hard to pick up. The 2 looks like little legs were actually pedipalps, and you can actually tell if it's a male or female spider. If the pedipalps have sort of a blob at the end, they're almost like boxing gloves, that would be a male spider. So this one looks more like a female, or it depends if it's a juvenile male spider, you can't tell the difference. But can you see the legs? Look at the legs there. They're really muscular, those 2 front pairs. That's because this spider, it's gone off for a walk. This spider literally grabs and tussles with its prey. So it needs those strong legs to pull it in. This second spider that I'm showing you, they're not very active. This is actually a garden spider. Now, can you see it on the abdomen at the back? You can see like the white pattern, cross pattern. And this is very indicative of garden spiders. Now, if you look, the head, you can see it's incredibly hairy, and it has 2 pairs, of quite large eyes. The head itself is amazing to look at. They really do have a lot of hairs on. Remember, a lot of these are sensory. I'll follow it around a bit because it's gone very, very active, and hopefully she'll settle down. You'll see her just her legs catching some silk. That she was quite active in the pot, so we got a bit of silk around there. That's a beautiful pattern. And if you look at that left leg at the back, has got like a brown lump on. That's actually a mite. Some mites hitch rides. That's the way they get around from one place to another. And it's attached itself right on the joint of the leg. That's a lovely, lovely shot of her. So this is a very typical garden spider, and the one that typically leaves that cobweb we're so used to with the spiral pattern around it. She just tucked herself up there because she's very frightened, and she's just protecting herself, bringing her legs in to protect her body. What we're looking at here isn't technically what we would call a spider. It's an arachnid. It's actually a harvest man. If you look, can you remember when we looked at the anatomy of spiders? They had a very clear head and a very clear abdomen. This specimen just has one body. And right in the middle, can you see the black bits that are shining? There are its eyes, and they're up on a turret. This is actually something called a spring harvest man spider. Like I said, they're not spiders, they are arachnids. And you can see, just like spiders, they have the fangs hanging down at the front as well. So incredibly long legs. And the spring harvestman spider is unusual in harvestman in that it overwinters as a juvenile. All the other harvestmen either overwinters eggs or in the adult form. And at this time of year, if you're seeing these long-legged harvestmen, it's very likely to be the spring one. And the last spider we've got here, oh, that's a lovely shot of her. Oh, wow, look at those eyes really shining. Spiders have this glare back where if you shine a bright light on them, the eyes actually bounce back the light like mirrors, a bit like cat's eyes and things like that. So she's a bit active, this one. This is a house spider. Look at the beautiful markings. And did you see right at the end of the abdomen, two little pointy bits, which were the spinnerets? So here we are. We've got a lovely shot of her eyes and the peripalps coming down. Those two little like mini legs, they actually help her to feed herself. They're almost like little hands. Very, very hairy again. Don't forget, because these hairs are sensory, so they're helping it to find the vibrations of its prey. Now, can you see at the bottom of this, she's gone for a little wander. It's quite hard to catch up with her. There's a lot of silk. You can see it all around. That's a really good piece there. And it's almost very fluffy looking, okay? So typically, a house spider has these sort of like hammock sheet-like web structures. So you know you've got one in your house if you see those, particularly in the corner of your room. I'll see if I can catch up with her because she is really quite active, and it's quite hard looking through to try and find out where she's gone there. That's a nice little shot at the end of the feet with the two like almost like toes on it. Oh, she's trying to get up the lens there. But there, you should be able to see the spinnerets, the little pointy bits at the back, just there. She's struggling a little bit to walk on that silk. If you do pick up spiders and things, please just put a little bit of tissue paper in with them if you're going to have a look at them in a pot, and make it damp, because they do lose a lot of moisture. Oh, she's having another look. But there, that's a lovely shot of the abdomen and also the head of the spider. So house spiders, very, very common, beautiful shot there. And you've probably got a few in your house if you go and have a look. So I do hope that you will go and have a look at these different webs now and look at them in a new way. So I've come indoors and I'm going to be an orb web spider, and I'm going to show you how they actually construct their webs, which is a very, very clever thing that they do. So to do this, and I'm just going to change the camera around, you need some dark coloured material, because if you have light coloured you won't be able to see your threads, a cushion, some pins, some white cotton, and a pair of scissors. Take your fabric and put it over your cushion and stretch it out as tight as you can so it's nice and smooth and you can see exactly what you're doing. Maybe tuck the ends around the edge of the cushion, okay? And then you're going to need your pins, and for this I'm going to put 3 pins in. There's one there. Please be careful after you've done this and make sure you take all the pins out of your cushion so nobody sits on your cushion and goes, ow. So I'm going to take 3 pins. I'm going to put one here, one at the top, and one at the bottom, a bit like an upside down triangle. And now I'm going to take my thread, and what would happen with the spider might be sitting over at this point and let out some the thread, and hopefully the wind would take it and it would get anchored onto a set point. So you don't really need to knot this, you can just sort of like wind the thread around. So it's got the first anchor point, okay? So it pulls it quite tight, make sure that it's firmly attached, and then this is our second anchor point. I'm just going to wrap the thread around. This one is called the bridge thread, okay? And then what the spider does is it goes along that line again, okay, till it reaches that first point. And it's quite hard doing this one-handed, but I will try my very best. Can you see I've got it quite loose, this line now? So I'm just going to take that line, oops, and just wrap it around again, okay? Around this pin just here. It's also very hard looking just down through the lens of a camera to do these things, which is why I look like I'm more fingers and thumbs. So we just get that thread, okay, and just wrap it round. You don't need to do it any more than that. Okay, oops. There we go. Okay, and when we've done that, what I'm going to do is actually cut that thread off and just make sure it's secure around that pin. But can you see that bridge thread is nice and tight, but this one's quite loose. So we've tied that line on just there, and you can see this is really quite loose. What we're going to do is the spider would actually walk back down this line about halfway, and it would secure with another thread just here and secure down to a third fixed point, which I'll just tie on now. So I've secured this thread about halfway along, and now the spider would drop down to the third point, and I'm just going to wrap it around here to secure it really tight. Now can you see we've got a lovely Y shape now beginning to form, and this is the basis of our web. Then it would go back up, and these side ones here are like strengthening. So I'm just going to tie that bit around the pin here. So I've taken that thread from the drop down, that lovely Y shape, and I've taken it from this point right up to this point. And now I'm going to do the same from this side to this side. So now we've got this other thread attached, and now this is really beginning to strengthen this web, giving it a really good structure. What then happens is the spider will start making radial threads, so head out from here, out all the time to the outside. Now, because I want to show you this, I'm just going to lay my threads down, but you can actually tie it on each time, particularly if you want to pick up this web afterwards and maybe use it. Another way you can make this web diagram is actually to do it, to stick it down on cards so you don't need to put pins in. Or you can do little split pins through card and keep it that way as well. So I'm just going to carry on and put out my radial threads out here to build up the strength of my web. So now I've added my radial parts to my web, but you can see if you were a spider you wouldn't really be happy with this, because what's to stop a fly actually flying through that gap? So there are really big holes in this web. Plus the strength of the web isn't in one strand, it's by having lots of strands together. So this is where the spider goes into the middle of the web and starts that lovely spiral motion. So it'll start from the middle and it go round, and each time it crosses one of these lines it just attaches it to it. Okay, so you start weaving out in that lovely spiral pattern. So I've started making that spiral pattern, and I don't know if you can see, but each time that I cross one of the lines, I'm getting another pin. And it's quite tricky and quite fiddly, so young children might need a bit of hand with this. I'm just pinning it down, pulling it around. Okay, you can just see here. I'll get another pin and just pin that down as well. I carried on that pattern of going across, and each time I crossed a line, just to pin it down so I could change direction. And I've made my spiral. I think as a spider, I'd probably be very unsuccessful at catching flies because I do have some rather large caps in mine. Just some top tips here. The thicker this thread is, if you use wool, it makes it easier for smaller children, but they definitely will need a hand with this. So there you go. And if you do have a go at this, it makes you appreciate just how hard work it is and just how clever these spiders are. So just remember, this was constructed by a bridge thread and then a very loose thread. The spider then went back along the middle and pulled that line down. Okay, and fixed it on a point. There were then 2 extra outer edges added for strength, and then the radial silk was spun and laid out. And then the spider started on the spiral, so it went round and round and round. This is the very, very sticky thread designed to catch its prey. Now, some spiders, they actually won't sit on the web, they'll sit away from it. And they have a line, which is called a signal line. So they might be sitting hidden away up here. But the signal line, the vibrations on the web will tell it if it's caught something. Now, spiders are quite clever. Some of them know from the vibrations whether it's something a bit more dangerous for them, like a wasp, and they would avoid it. There's also a spider called the missing sector web spider. And what that means, it's got one of these sectors missing. It's completely a hole in it. And that's one of the ways that we can tell what spider we're looking at. So there you go, have a go at making your own spider's web, and please do send us in pictures of any ones that you make.